Hey everyone, welcome back to yet another episode of Modern SaaS Podcast. Today, I have a special guest who I've known for a long time now, Collin Cadmus. I've known him when he was a VP of sales at AirCall. And Collin was one of those pioneers of creating personal brand on LinkedIn, sharing his thoughts, getting fans along the way, and then creating his own brand. I started learning a lot of what I learned in sales. Definitely, I give kudos to Collin and credits to Collin by following his content. And then today I thought I had a few questions about how the world of prospecting is evolving, what's happening with the cold emails and the cold calls, and what's the new way of doing it. Collin was working on something, another concept of this whole modern prospecting. So I thought, who would be a better person than inviting and sharing his learnings and thoughts and enlightening us. So Collin, welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to speak with you.
I know. What's going on new in your life? What is the new, if you want to share the audience, the recent thing that you're currently working on, any exciting project? Because you're always one of those who have lots of ideas working on something. So I would love to hear.
It's a good question because that's maybe been the vein of my existence for a while, is having probably too many ideas. And, what have I been working on lately? I'll be honest. I've been working on myself more than anything. And I'm past that phase now. And now I'm working on some projects, but it ties into sort of what you just asked. I recognized I just turned 37 and I'm single. I've still been, grinding away in my career. I have mostly focused on my career my whole life. And I got to a point where, COVID happened. Everyone's lives changed. I moved out of the city here to the Jersey Shore and started consulting. And I just was flooded with ideas always since a kid, right? Entrepreneurially. The more experience I got in my career, the more, elevated I get, I guess, sort of the more you have to lose, right? To take those risks. And I got to a point where I realized I'm not taking any risks. I am literally just thinking about great ideas. I am sitting on them for way too long because I'm so nervous to mess something up or go too far in one direction. And so this year, I've taken time away from LinkedIn. I think people probably noticed the last year or so, I've been just focusing on myself, my diet. I lost a lot of weight. I'm in good spirits. My sleep is better. I get off a lot of nonsense medications, all that sort of stuff. And so I'm clear and I'm focused. And what I have decided to do as approaching this year is to act more than I think. And I've spent a long time thinking. So I've done plenty of that. But now my objective is to actually try to just take more at bats. And instead of, having an idea and saying, all right, I got to really think that through. I got to think through every detail, figure everything out. Let me see it. And this is the worst example of it. Let me go find the domain name. The worst thing. You'll spend hours before you've even done anything. And this was me. I'm searching around for domain names for an idea I have done nothing about, right? And that was the way my brain was working. So this year, it's just different. You have an idea, get after it, put something together, try to see what happens, see if it sticks. Don't care if it doesn't, and just move. And I think it's okay if you do a lot of things that way, as long as there's some way that if any of them work out, they could maybe come together into something larger. I don't know if that's Elon Musk's strategy, but I kind of feel like I've perceived that he does that, and it has rubbed off perhaps a little bit on me. So what am I working on now? A lot of things. Modern prospecting is obviously a big thing. I'm still building out the consulting, not taking my foot off the gas there, but I do have something big that I'm working on in regards to sales and in regards to the future of sales, and specifically for B2B SaaS, perhaps B2C SaaS. But not ready to announce it yet. But what I can say is that I've preached a lot about AI potentially taking over salespeople.
Yeah.
And I guess an easy way to summarize it without getting too far into the weeds and throwing this whole episode off topic would be that I think that I have an idea on how it doesn't necessarily mean we will stop AI from taking over sales, but it means if we make a drastic change, we can make it a lot harder. And we would do that by actually making the human salesperson more valuable than anything AI can do. And how do you do that? Well, what does AI do? It tries to replicate what we're already doing. Okay. And what we're already doing is not really liked or loved by the customers. And so if we change that, well, first of all, it's going to take a long time for AI to even catch up to the fact that we just changed how we sell, right? So there you just bought yourself some time. But the idea is not to just say, all right, we want to come up with a hack to keep salespeople in business. That's not going to work, right? But if you can rethink the whole process and the way that we bring products to market, the way we sell them, if we can do that, then we could potentially provide significantly more value from a human salesperson than any AI is going to be able to do. And I'll throw one word in there, and then I'll leave it at that until there's a, maybe I'll announce it on another episode of your podcast. But we have a big problem with bias in this world, in sales, and people are not going to tolerate it anymore. People are way past it. People are too smart. And you're seeing it happen with ChatGPT, which I think everyone's going to start paying $20 a month for now because they don't want to run a Google search because the Google search bias, right? And so you get the same exact result when you speak to a salesperson, unfortunately, because they're incentivized to do one thing. So that's where my head's at. More to come.
Oh my God. We had not discussed this at all. So this was,
I even told myself, I said, don't say it. But I can't help it. When I get fired up about things, either I go 100 miles an hour or I'm not interested. So
no, it clearly shows the passion that you have for some of these topics, the passion you have to help the sales industry and world to continue to push forward. And I've seen you doing it for a long period as well. And finally, the way you mentioned also the passion to actually act, progress over perfection. And so this is one of our VP of sales always talks about this. So I love the way you're not overthinking all the time. Now, finally, take more ad bets. And this is how you keep getting better, multiple startup attempts. If I look at my own journey of Avoma, people know my previous startup that was also a successful startup, but they don't know all the other attempts that I've failed. So I did 7
because not all of them make it to the LinkedIn profile, right?
Exactly. That's the whole point. So I had probably 6, 7 attempts that failed and then 2 became successful. So you're absolutely right. So, and we would definitely love to have you back because this topic itself is so exciting, the bias, and then even just the point you mentioned about pushing the boundary with the AI and humans. That's exactly how we think about every day. So we'll have another episode when you're ready to do that. Today, we wanted to go deeper into, let's say, prospecting. We wanted to talk about that. Why don't I actually start with just asking you a question like, can you remember a recent experience where you actually had a bad experience, you did not like it, the way the salesperson or SDR was trying to reach out to you and trying to sell something?
Probably many. A really bad one. I'll give you an example. And I think I might have used this example actually in my course or in one of the promo videos or something, but it was a good example because it was someone who reached out to me and the timing of it is what made it so good. But they reached out and I think they did web design, something of that nature. And so they were reaching out, trying to offer a way to make my website better. And they put a lot of effort in, which I appreciate. Problem was, it was just in the wrong direction. So they put together a whole little video of my website trying to show me what they would do to it, this and that. The problem is they didn't know I just finished building that website and I was very proud of it. So that hurt, that stung, and I didn't respond to them, right? And so you have to be cautious, and I see this in prospecting a lot. And I think I gave you another example one time we were chatting about you see it with personal trainers and the physical fitness. They want to reach out. These guys, they're motivated to get you in shape and this and that, but they make the assumption that you think you're not in shape. And that's a big assumption to make about someone, especially because they may have just worked really hard to lose 100 pounds. And now you just told them they don't look good and they need your attention. And so this is why there's 3 phases to the program I put together, which, as I've said to everyone, these are not new. All right. I'm just putting them in place and saying them over and over because you can't forget them. And when you try to skip over one, you're going to end up unintentionally insulting some people that are like, what do you mean new website? I just spent so much time on this. Now, had you emailed me and said, hey, I really like your new website. I saw what you did there. Like, good work, man. Did you do that all yourself? I'd be like, yeah, I want to brag about that. Yeah, I did actually. Like, thanks for noticing. And then they will eventually get me to say something about what I couldn't figure out how to do, something where I did need help. That conversation would have happened because I don't know what I'm doing building a website. I do need help, but I don't want help from someone who just really made me feel like crap. I'm going to just end up not wanting to read the rest of that message because I'm like, and that's what people don't consider often. You reach out as a salesperson and you use logic in your head.
Yeah.
And you don't consider the perception of the person that's sitting there who is not thinking like a salesperson who sells that product every day. They are not thinking necessarily. They don't know maybe how bad something is or how good it is. Or you also don't know, maybe they're already working on it, right? Maybe it's about to be launched tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
And they've done it already. And so when you make these assumptions, what happens is it's subconscious, but you're telling the person that you don't really care about them. And you just care about yourself closing the deal, getting the meeting. Because if you actually cared, you wouldn't lead with that, right? You just wouldn't. It's like sending someone, I use this example all the time. It's like going to the bar. Hey, you're beautiful. Can I buy you a drink? Oh yeah, sure. Where are you from? That's how it normally happens, right? But hey, you're beautiful. Do you want to marry me? Like, whoa, you would never do that.
Yeah.
You would never do that. But we do it in sales every single day because we're talking to people we don't know. And we don't really care when they walk away thinking whatever they think, because we're just going to send that out to 5,000 people and we only care about the 3 that respond. Right. And that's a problem because what happens is that compounds into what we have today, which is people hate talking to salespeople. We have done that to ourselves. We have by doing things like that.
Collin, though, this is interesting because on one hand, this is not probably the bad example I was expecting. There are probably other bad examples
I'm trying to not give you the classics. Yeah.
Yeah, the classics was not personalization and still not relevant, but you're actually going even one step beyond. You're saying,
because have you ever heard a buyer say that? Salespeople with the personalization, no one cares. I'm sorry to say it. They don't care that you noticed that they went to a certain school on their LinkedIn profile. It is not personal. You do not know them. It is a cold call. They know that. You know that. Stop beating around the bush. All right. Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean just jump into a pitch and drop your calendar link. It means be a human. Try something that isn't so friggin' predictable. Because if it's already in a template, if it's already in a cadence, if it already exists somewhere, it's in someone's playbook or it's suggested in HubSpot or Outreach or SalesLoft, guess what? It's been seen, it's been known, and people are numb to it. And so you see the same thing. It's why I go back to sort of what I was talking about before, is you can take AI to try to make what humans do better, right? The problem with that is it has a shelf life. Okay.
Yeah.
It has a shelf life. So you take SalesLoft, you take Outreach, and you say, wow, we see this sales process. We can build some tools. We can make this happen a lot faster. Yeah. Cool. You did. And you built some very, very large companies there, right? What happened over time? Everyone knows it's a cadence. I'm going to get this email in 2 days. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get that. And so the effectiveness just goes down. And it's because we are using AI to replicate what humans do instead of thinking about how do we make humans do things better.
Sure. And I like the fact that you mentioned in this whole thing, it's this particular example that you talked about was the bad prospecting. On one hand, did the level of personalization, did that research, but at the same time, the biggest problem was that they made assumptions about who you are.
Yes.
And what the lesson I'm learning here, instead of making that assumption and your presumptive clauses about what you can solve their problem, you don't even know me. You should have first open up to be probably more ask question about me, my health, or compliment me, be curious and get to know me. And then over the period, that's really what you were.
Because what can you do after you do that? Now you actually can be personal. Because now you actually know something.
You know them. Yeah.
Yes. Now, I'm not going to say that when we first started doing this, that it didn't work. It did. It felt personal. Oh my God, no salesperson's ever said that you went to Johnson & Wales in Providence before. But now they all do. It's not personal. Everyone's
it's evolved. Yeah, the playbooks are evolved. Yeah.
Buyers
and I think
are smart and they get numb to things very fast.
But this is the reason I brought this topic. I want to discuss this with you because we've talked about this. You talked about this. There are many other leaders talked about this. A lot of sales gurus are talking about this on LinkedIn also, that personalization is important. Don't ask for meetings in your first email. it's because you would not ask somebody to marry in the first meeting that you would have with, right? So same thing here, like don't ask me that, can you give me 15 minutes or 30 minutes? But even today, I still see that's still happening. So this is so surprising that this advice, why do we need to keep repeating this advice that, guys, the playbooks are changing, keep evolving, don't follow the same thing. Now there's a new one that, have a soft interest CTA, where you're not talking about, do you have time and can we meet, but you're still saying, is this interested? And even that certain thing, I've started realizing there's a pattern there. It's the same people are watch some other gurus and leaders, and now they've started following that practice.
Yeah.
But what I would do is right now, rather than immediately going to the details and the tactics, obviously we always love to talk the rant about the bad things that people have done. Do you remember anything good prospecting that you actually like, the way that recent example, anything that you think where people reached out to you and you appreciated this was a better prospecting, where you didn't know the person, they didn't use any connection or warm introduction, completely cold, but you remember about it?
I'll tell you why. I'm realizing now I have trouble recalling it. And I'm realizing also why I have trouble recalling it, because it was
That's
that
a
good.
bad state. Yeah.
Because it was that good, right? The ones that really work, you don't remember them so much as an outreach, because it didn't feel like an outreach. The way that happens is someone takes their time. Instead of, okay, today I got to get a list of 100 people. I got to get a couple snippets from their LinkedIn so I can put it into my merge fields, which we call personal, but it's a merge field.
It's
folks.
not personal, yes.
It's a merge field, right? And so if you don't do that, instead you take your time and you're kind of just playing the fields, right? And I love the dating analogies because it's just so easy for people to understand. But let's say you're okay. I'm a guy. I'm in college. I'm single. I'm going out. I want to meet my next girlfriend, right? I'm going to go to the bar and I'm like, all right, every night I got to introduce myself to at least 20 girls, right? And I got to ask if I can buy a drink or something. Now, if you do that and you have this very sort of rigid sort of process where you're focused on these numbers, in the past, again, these things worked. But again, when you master something so well, over time, it doesn't work so well because the buyers start to know what's going on, right? So we love to forget that aspect of it, and we just see a process. We're like, okay, it works, let's make it better. But we don't realize that like everything external of it is changing too in real time every day, right? And so the great outreach is the one that was super organic. The great socializers, the one who have all the girlfriends and boyfriends asking them out all the time. They have all the options. These are the people who are not going out to the bar with the mindset of like, I got to try to approach 20 people tonight. They're going out to the bar with the mindset of, I'm happy. I'm looking to talk to people. I'm going to meet some people. And they're just out doing that. And in today's day and age, when you're selling, those are the people that are successful, and they're doing it on social media. They're less focused on blasting out thousands of emails. They are far more focused on engaging with their audience, with their target market, whether it's sharing content, whether it's commenting and chiming in on their content. And everyone says they do it. Oh, I have a buffer account. I put my LinkedIn post every day, and half of these people are just putting posts up on how to be a salesperson. Well, half of them are trying to tell you how to be a salesperson. They don't even sell a product that has anything to do with sales. So it's like, you got to start with the right audience first, right? And then you wonder why it's not working. But you have to do that, and you have to go at it from an organic sort of mentality. Because when you start approaching it with this, we got to hit a certain number, we got to hit a certain quota, we got to do this, we got to do that. And I know we want that. We want it to fit in a spreadsheet. We want to model it out. We want to know what's coming. But you can feel it as the buyer. Always. It's not easy to hide that. But when you just change your view, and I used to say this to folks even before I got into the modern prospect, I said, when you're prospecting right now, what's your mindset? Your mindset is, what are you focused on? What is your mission right now? What's in your head all day? You're doing this. I got to schedule meetings. I got to schedule meetings. I said, that's why you're failing. That is why you are failing, because that is not prospecting. That is pushing meetings on people. Prospecting is reaching out to people with the sole intention of finding people who might actually need what you have to offer. Only at that point can you even consider a meeting. So if you're just out there looking to set meetings, you're skipping over everything important. And like I said, the buyer can feel that. You get on that call, they know where They know inside your head that your mission is to set a meeting. You just said it to me, right? You thought that was the right thing to be doing, but it's not, because they feel that. They feel it on the other end. But if you were actually reaching out, and let's say that you earned, just imagine that you got paid commission every time you found someone who could be a ICP. Every day you just have to find them. You got to find the person and have had just enough dialogue to say, that's it right there. They could be right for our product. Imagine you got commission for that.
Yeah.
And I'm not suggesting that, by the way. Don't pay people for that. Not a good idea. That'll get too expensive really fast. At least I think it probably would. And that's the problem with some of this stuff, is you have to incentivize behaviors, but you also have to, be realistic with money. And so, is there a right way to do it? Perhaps you get rid of the quota altogether. Perhaps the incentive for an SDR is whatever comes next in their career. Perhaps they have to just make it through a year, right? And I'm just throwing things at the wall here.
Keep going.
Perhaps you want to move away from that concept of like book meeting, and just get them in the mindset more of almost like a marketer, but a marketer who's actually talking to people, right? And so a marketer is not super worried necessarily, a more content marketer, right? Demand gen, they're worried about the meetings too. But a content marketer, they're really just looking to engage. They're looking to put good stuff out there, and they're looking to be organic. And if you add that with the concept of being a salesperson, actually talking to people, engaging with them, and all you're trying to do is just find people that might be right. And because when you find them, the rest of it's so easy. The rest of it is so easy, and the meeting will eventually book itself if you just have the right conversation with the right people. So prospecting, outbound, it is not about booking meetings. It's not about scheduling demos. It's about engaging with as many people as possible so that you can find the ones that might be good for your product. Then worry about the meeting.
I have so many questions because you talked about that. You talked about the whole compensation. We can go deep into that area, but I'll hold on to that in a minute.
Those were not well thought out thoughts, by the way. That was a piece where I was just riffing in there a little bit.
We'll get there. We'll go deep into that area because I don't want to rush through it very quickly because that is an important thing, because we keep talking about evolving the prospecting, but then if we still keep accountable our team on certain areas, the booking number of meetings booked, then that's still wrong behavior that we are driving there. Yeah. So let's actually back up a little bit. You talked about these things that, hey, reaching out to cold just directly, not asking immediately the close is not the right thing. But instead you mentioned engage with them, create the content, share. You have this playbook that you've defined. Do you want to probably take this, or everything what you shared is probably part of that? My question there would be, when SDR starts going deep and tactical, their leadership, their managers are telling them this thing that your goal is to book meetings. And they literally start producing from the next month. Like that, this maybe 2 weeks to 4 weeks is max the ramp up period I'm seeing. And immediately the expectation is that you start booking meetings. And what you're saying, and these are SDRs who are, and probably also to some extent to account executives as well, who are early in their career. Now they're thinking, Collin, you are a VP of sales. You have a lot of experience. You can talk about your experience and expertise to build the content and all of that stuff. I'm just fresh out of school, or maybe I have a few years of experience under my belt. How I'm going to do this on LinkedIn and how I'm going to build the relationship and engage with the people. I've seen one person in our team has done that really well, and I'll talk about him also, some of the amazing things that he has done. But I want to know, like, when you want to give this advice to the audience, how do you guide them to start in this journey to, you talked about this framework, create and all of that stuff, engage. How do they create? How do they engage? How do they build that confidence that I have something interesting to say, credible to say, that I would be okay and welcome in this LinkedIn community? Otherwise, you're rightly said, if you just simply share those links of some other articles, that's not just for the sake of it, doing social sharing or social selling. So would love to hear your thoughts. Like, how do somebody new in their career should get started here?
Great question. So there's a few ways to look at it. First is, I think, the obvious, right? Which is sort of just like the blunt answer to the question, which is, if you're not an expert on your product, you shouldn't be selling it anyway. Right. So there's that. Should you even have someone sending out emails and trying to set meetings and trying to talk to prospects if they don't know enough that they couldn't write a post or talk confidently in the industry? Now, that doesn't mean they're a thought leader or whatnot, but let me tell you something. people are not just following thought leaders, right? I mean, and thought leaders weren't always thought leaders, right? They became thought leaders because people started listening to them. When I started posting stuff on LinkedIn, no one liked it. People laughed at me. I got made fun of at work. People were like, "What are you doing?" But over time, you accrue an audience, and a lot of people will unfollow you. The ones who aren't into it, they're going to leave. But over time, people who like what you're putting out there, they're going to go. So, but let me back up for a sec. The advice that I give.
Yeah.
And I think if my other thing, carries off into the wind, this will be advice that sticks true to that as well. Pick a category. Doesn't mean you need to sell the same product for the rest of your career. Try to pick a category, pick an industry, get something that you have maybe some passion about, right? You like finance, but you're selling software. Okay. You're going to focus on the finance area, right? You're really into sales and you just can't imagine selling anything that has nothing to do with sales. Well, you're going to sell sales software, right? Pick a category, and in today's day and age, you're going to bounce around company to company every few years. That's going to happen. Hopefully we change that someday. But if you stay in a category, in modern sales is going to be a lot easier because you're going to have the same audience. You're going to have the same general, sort of area. Whereas if you're like posting for a year on, I don't know, real estate software or something, and then you jump over to sales, it's like, you got to start all over, right? So if you're going to do this, you need to know first and foremost that what you're doing is not just for your company, it's for you, right? Social media, you own it. So if you're going to put in the time, and this is what's beautiful about it, is that you can actually be doing something at work, getting paid, salary, benefits, but you're doing something that's for you, that you get to take with you too. It helps you in the job. That's why they want you to do it, but it's yours. It's yours to keep. And so if you're not strategic about that, you might put in a bunch of work, building up a bit of an audience, and then you realize, I don't even like selling this category. I don't even like this industry. Like, what am I doing? And I think that's why a lot of salespeople are just like, they just give sales advice. And it's like, but you're like, what is that doing for you? I mean, are you going to become a sales consultant? You want to sell training? Okay, well, now I get it, right? But are you just trying to sell like a project management software, but you're talking to salespeople? Like, probably not going to do much for you, right? Now, doesn't mean you can't do that if you just want to do that, but it's probably unrelated to your job. So how do they get started? Well, you start. That's how you start. The guy on YouTube, what's their name? Think Media. I don't know if you ever look at these guys. When I was trying to figure out my cameras and everything, I look at Think Media, and at the beginning of every, they have a little like intro audio, and it's like, just press record. Like, that's it. And they teach people how to YouTube and stuff. And that's their point. It's like the number one piece of advice: just press record. Start.
That is impressive.
Do it. The great thing about the worst piece of content you'll ever write, no one's going to see it. I'll add one other thing. Right. Start commenting on other people's things. Not everything you do has to be your own. In fact, when I go to LinkedIn and I have writer's block and I can't think of what to write, I don't worry about it. I go into the feed. I start looking at stuff I want to comment on. Before you know it, you got something in your head that you want to go deeper on. There you go. Write your post.
I love it. Because the way you are saying is that, and this is also good. Like, let's start from the reverse. First and foremost, start doing it. Start recording if you want to do podcasts, but simply start hitting the post button. Yeah. And writing things, start doing it. Show up there on LinkedIn every day. If you have a writer's block, which all of us do, you are not born, let's say, necessarily a thought leader to come up with a brand new idea every day. One of the few ideas that I've seen, obviously, as you said, comment on somebody else. The more you comment, you're also building your own point of view. And then maybe a couple of comments might turn into a post as well. So also take that as an approach. And in fact, even LinkedIn.
Jason Lemkin and I do this back and forth all the time. Yeah. It's just, we follow each other. And the next thing you know, our comment turned into like our next post, and they get better and better. And yeah.
Exactly. And so
you know what? When you do that, by the way, the person you commented on, well, they're probably going to want to chime in on that topic. Right. Yep. So you're like already creating engagement because it's a topic that is already kind of out there, but you want to build something bigger on it.
Yeah. But I will also add, nowadays, I see some SDRs, when they try to engage with my content, I don't know if they're doing it to make sure that I get notification that they've commented on it and I kind of learn it. Be thoughtful. The way you say, right, people can smell this thing. This is a playbook that go and comment on somebody's post. It's added, the step is added in the playbook of your outbound. Yeah. I can see it. I can smell it. If you have done it just to get the notification, they will go and like all my previous 5 posts. Yeah. I know that you're trying to get an attention. That's, again, it's the same hack of trying to get quickly married. Yeah. Take the time, be thoughtful, read the post, comment, ask question. If you don't have a comment, simply ask question. If you don't agree, say that, hey, I don't agree or something like that. That would still come across a genuine post rather than trying to, this is interesting. And then it feels like it's automated to some extent and you just want to do something and get that engagement. So I love that. The other part you mentioned also, the
That's
category.
Why, by the way, I'll add one tip real quick. That's why picking a category you're interested in makes it all easier.
Yeah. And the one thing you said I liked about picking the category, that it's not, people think that, oh, I'm in this company sells to that particular market. So now I have to start talking about that market or what they're selling so that I resonate with my buyers. I think there is probably, you can have a calendar of things. You can do that one day, but don't do it all 5 days.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
For the rest of the 3-4 days, pick your own personal passion of category that you're interested in. The way I liked, because don't think you're doing this because you're selling to this for this particular company. You have your own. LinkedIn is going to stay with you for all your future career as well.
Yeah.
So rather than looking at company's category, look at your own personal passion category and start talking about that. In between, keep inserting your company post once in a while so people won't mind that. I really love that feedback because people don't think like that. Hey, what is my personal category? Who I want to be known for, and I can add value there. One of the other things that
ideally it ties together a little bit. I would say one thing on that, I could be wrong, but I think with the LinkedIn algorithm, I've noticed this because I happen to have a habit of doing a lot of what you're talking about. Like I'll post sales, marketing, and then I get fired up about a personal finance or economic issue and I want to write about it. Those posts never seem to do as well, at least lately. I think maybe historically they kind of would, but now it seems like if I go off of my and I almost think it's tied
audience
to the hashtags that you have in your LinkedIn, because I notice I have hashtag sales, hashtag marketing, hashtag SaaS. If I use those words in my posts, it seems like the posts just do better. If I write a post that has nothing to do with those hashtags, it seems like it doesn't get attention. Now, is that an algorithm thing? Or is it just that my audience really doesn't want to hear me talking about, something that's personal to me? So I think what you're saying is right, but it's probably important that they kind of meet in the middle somewhere.
Correct.
Like if you're doing these two totally different things, it's probably just going to be weird. Yeah. Because if you get an audience who only likes half of your content, eventually the other half's going to just piss them off or something.
I really like it. And you're 100% right, because the way I'm doing my content nowadays, obviously, I'm not a sales expert. So I'm learning. I was an engineer. I
think you're much better than you realize. You should give yourself more credit.
Well, but when you people look at my background, it will be an engineer turned into product person to now salesperson as a CEO, right? But when I started thinking about the sales, I said that I can't go and coach people and I won't have credibility to talk about it, that how to do discovery, how to do coaching, or how to do all of that stuff. What I felt was that my product background combined with the sales background, I said, okay, I'm going to talk about the product-led sales world. That is where my unique insights are, because I'm coming from a product background, but at the same time, I'm having a sales experience and I'm trying to talk about that. What is the new way of selling is happening and what you need to unlearn if you want to be relevant into this industry. And I can completely talk about with that authority because that's how we built Avoma. And so we will keep using our own examples, our failures, our learnings to talk about that. So I like that marrying your two things, maybe your company's audience, which is the sales audience I needed to talk about, but my personal passion was product management. And I felt there's a marriage here that I can talk about. It still comes with authenticity. I really love that.
And that overlap it doesn't need to be so specific, right? And what I think people do often, sorry to cut you off. I just want to make sure I wanted to give the little tidbits because I forget stuff if I don't. When you're making the content, if you are only thinking about something that somehow has an angle towards your product, that's where I was going with that. I literally psyched that out of my head and it came back. If you're always thinking about somehow there has to be an angle in this post to advertise my product, and you see that people get clever with this and they write the whole thing, and I've done it, and you do it once in a while, it's fine. But you do it all the time, you write this whole thing and you get to the end, and it's well, I got the solution to your problem. People, it bothers people, right? And so some people they always think everything has to be like that. But you can provide value that really will engage the audience without talking about the product itself, right? And so we do this in sales. Gong or Outreach, right? They're
Yeah.
just going to talk about sales. They're not talking
Yeah.
about their product. They're not talking about their competitors' product. They're just talking about stuff that's relevant. Where I've seen that work for me in the past in terms of like, I'm talking to salespeople, I'm giving them advice. When I give some of that like, not the economic stuff that I was referring to, but like personal finance, like what to do with your commission when it hits your bank account, or hey, how to like not spend too much money. I've had posts that have done very, very well off that, because you're hitting the same audience. You're talking about money. So sales, money, it still goes together, but I'm not in any way trying to sell something or even angling towards something that I do sell. That I think goes really well. So if you can find a category, like a product category, like it's real estate tech or finance tech, or you pick something you like, there's probably enough in that niche of the world that you'll enjoy talking about that doesn't really have to do anything with the product. And that's the content that's valuable, because you're not product pushing. You're really just talking about a topic that people enjoy.
And I was to continue to this point. Thanks again for clarifying. My only comment was that sometimes people are overthinking that, are they experts or the thought leaders? As you said, nobody's thought leader, they become thought leader. And while you are in your journey of learning some new domain, learning some new skills, learning something else, you can also share those learnings also. You don't have to say that these are all my viewpoints. Nowadays, I see a lot of thought leaders even just repurposing someone else's work and trying to share that in a different format. So they'll see their tweets and they'll create these carousels on LinkedIn and they'll share.
They'll throw it into Chat GPT or something, right? Can
And
you reword this for me?
Correct. So my point is that a lot of the times, if you're reading books, if you're listening to podcasts, if you're understanding some new concepts, and it's okay that podcast somebody created, they had their own audience, but you have your own circle of network right now. Even if you share some of those lessons, give credit though to that. Hey, I'm watching this, I'm learning this, these are the new insights and I'm learning. And even that's how you will start adding value to the community, that people who care, they might not have discovered that same podcast that you have discovered. So why don't you be the messenger of that knowledge and share that knowledge? So that's also sometimes valuable.
That's a really good piece of advice, because it makes me think. I've done a lot of research on YouTubing, and it's something that I partially in my head I want to get more into at some point. Maybe I will. But one of the things that I've noticed that a lot of these folks do when they get, particularly after they've built a good audience, and they put a lot of effort probably into making 100% original content, they do a lot of work to get there. But sometimes Graham Stephan comes to mind. He's a personal finance guy, a young guy, but one of the things that he does a lot of now is reaction videos. And I realize why he does it. I think he mentioned it on one of his podcasts, because it's easy, because he doesn't have to think. What he does is he has two cameras set up. So you see him at his computer and he's watching someone else's video, but he'll keep pausing it and reacting and giving his thoughts. And it's always a video that's something to do with finance. So, he'll find a video of, I don't know, someone living in California who has a video called How I Live My Life on My $200,000 a Month Budget, like something absurd. And conservative finance, Graham Stephan is like, watching him watch the video and keep pausing, reacting. People love it. And he's not even making content, right? He's literally just doing what you said. So there's not a lot of that on LinkedIn. And
that's
when it is done, I think to your point, they're not being transparent about it, but it's almost much cooler to say, hey, I saw Jason Lemkin wrote this, or I saw Aditya wrote this the other day. Here's my take. I kind of agree, this and that. And LinkedIn even tries to push you to do it. Because when you write a really solid comment, you ever notice it's like, do you want to share this?
Share this as a post. Yep.
They're trying to tell you to do that. Yeah, so
exactly.
That's a great piece of advice.
Collin, I think we've talked about the value of building your brand, communicating or building the whole prospecting through your social content, thought leadership, and building relationship there, engaging with these people, and eventually they'll buy from you. But how do you convert this brand and thought leadership into leads and meetings that my manager is expecting me to book? Are we saying that if you want to do this, then you don't have to do the cold calls, cold emails anymore? Or are we saying there's a good blend of it, both how you should do it and how much of a period I should be giving if I'm starting as a sales leader or even salesperson, have an expectation from my team or from myself, how much time it would take me to build this and start seeing the results that at the end of the day, to your point, you still need meetings. You still need somebody else to talk to you. You just want to the right people rather than for the sake of it booking meetings which are not qualified.
Yeah.
How do you think about that transition?
So I can't answer the one about time. How long does it take? I'd be lying. It's going to be different for everyone, even just traditional sales. Before you even include social media, you'd have some people who, well, let's start there. Right. So, okay, traditional sales before really social was part of the prospect. You hire some SDRs. Here's the way I looked at it. You've got 90 days to prove that you are worth hiring. That doesn't mean you have 90 days to become great. It means you have 90 days to show me that I should keep you here. I should keep giving you that salary. Okay. Now, again, it doesn't mean there's not in-betweens or reasons or this or that.
Correct.
I am not looking. If I have 16 or 20 people, they start on day one. I do not expect all of them to get out on the phones after their 2 weeks of training or whatever and perform the same. Some of them are going to do really well. And guess what? Some of those people, a week later, they're going to do terrible for the rest of their career. It happens. Some of them are going to do awful in the beginning. That was me. Want to know why? I ask too many questions. I overthink everything. I told you that, right? And so, but I was the last person out of 16 people to close the sale. I then became the top salesperson of the entire company. I then became the head of sales training. And that taught me something very early on, which is not everyone learns at the same pace. And it might be because some people just really want to perfect every little detail before they go 100 miles an hour into it. Other people may want to go 100 miles an hour and fall on their face and learn from doing that, right? And so that's okay. What you need to see, and again, I'm talking the traditional model, is you have to see enough progress that by day 90, and this is transactional sales. So if you're in long enterprise cycles, you probably need some more time, right? But if we're just talking SDR, generally speaking, if you don't know in 90 days, something's wrong, right? Now, that doesn't mean that they could have maybe done really bad for the first 2.5 months, but in that last 2 weeks, we hit something. We got something clicked, right? There's momentum. Okay. I don't care that their performance on a spreadsheet was atrocious compared to the rest of the class. I care that the momentum has significantly changed. And that is what matters. In the same way that someone who crushed it in their first month, if that momentum dies, well, you can't keep thinking of that person as a top rep, right? Like, it's gone. The momentum is gone. And we've all done this. We've hired people who have the stellar resumes and they come in, they just suck. It's momentum. It's where are they at in their head? Where are they at in their life? What's distracting? All these different things play into it. And sometimes you're just really great at something, but you can only be great at it once because you're never going to enjoy it again. I've seen that happen plenty of times. And then they go get the big job and they push for the big salary because look at my resume, look what I did. But they get there and you can tell their fire is just gone. Why? Because they've gotten so good at it that they don't like it. That was me as a salesperson. I didn't like doing it anymore because I had perfected, from my own perspective, every piece of my process. I said, there's nothing that's going to be invigorating about trying to dig deeper into this for me. I want to now try to, okay, can I help train 20 people how to do this? That's a new obstacle, right? Now I can use what I learned, but I can take on new obstacles. Some people don't want that, right? Some people say, I got really good at this. I'm going to do this thing for the rest of my life. This is a money machine, right? And their brain is different. They're content with that. They actually like that they don't need to keep trying new things. Me, I get bored, right, with that stuff. So I think I might have gone off topic there, but I do have a note here that I wrote down for one of your questions that I think we skipped. So I'll touch it really quick. I think you asked, why does this still keep happening, right?
Yeah.
Why are we still doing this? And I think I might have thrown you off topic, but there's just a quick visual. That's why, okay? And what I mean by money there, everything that we are doing, if we are talking about B2B SaaS particularly, or the startup community, you have to realize, everyone has to realize this. It's important to realize what you are actually a part of. You are not working for a publicly traded company or a profitable company. You're not working for an entity that generates profit most of the time, okay? Very important to know that. You're also not working for a company that necessarily your founders even own it. Maybe they don't. Maybe they own a tiny little piece of it, right? Maybe they are not even in control. What you have to realize is this is all part of a massive ecosystem. This is part of a complete part of our economy, right? This is there's an investment side to this, and every company is generally, now of course there's some self-funded, there's bootstrapped, there's all the in-betweens, but generally speaking, and this is changing a lot now, right? By the way, because of what's happening. But what we have focused on has been this, right? And because we've had lots of it flowing through the economy and you want to raise money, okay, get out there, raise money. We got tons of it. Here you go. Here you go. You need a little extra. Here you go. Here you go. All right. And get that valuation up, get that valuation up. And for those who don't understand, real simple. You start a company, You create some shares of that company, and then you want to make those shares worth more money, right?
Yeah.
And that is kind of a problem because that doesn't necessarily equate to more value for the customer. That doesn't necessarily even equate to profit. And so when the economic or economy eventually, which is cyclical, right? You're going to have periods where there's lots of money flowing. You're going to have periods where inflation's gotten too high. We got to cut back. We got to trim that down. And SaaS has gone through this crazy period of just money flowing because it was the most exciting thing in the world. And so when you understand that system and you understand that most of these companies are a part of a portfolio for many investors, and these investors, they are not invested in just that one company. They are not hanging their hat on, I got to make this company successful. They have 20 of them. All right. And the other guy, they got 20 of them. They got 20 of them. They got 20, and they're all expecting one or two of them to work.
To become unicorn and all of that.
When you ask that question, why do we still do this when we know it's not working? Why is it still happening? Why are we still running these cadences? It's because of this. It's because when you have a system that is set up to become an investment vessel where you have a formula, we're going to put X number of dollars into this fund, 20 million, whatever. We're going to invest in 20 companies. We're going to expect one or two to succeed. The problem with that formula is you're expecting 18 of them to fail, first of all, and 18 of them may have 50 to 100 employees. And let's not even get into that, right? A lot of humans getting affected there, all at the expense of one company or two companies making it, right? And so it's deep, but I'm going to tell you where I'm going with this. I'm going to tell you where I'm going with it, because the reason that it takes so long for these sales best practices, so to speak, to change is because you are working within a system that has been perfected over time to deliver results a very specific way. And so anytime that you come to, and this could be different, I'm speaking from my experience, and I'm not even saying that I am against this. I don't want to come off the wrong way here. I'm simply stating facts based on what I've seen.
I love these takes.
When you try to come into making a drastic change, like, hey, we're going to stop cold calling, like something crazy like that, you're going to get a lot of pushback, okay? Because we've got a system, it's been working, maybe it's declining very gradually, but we're not looking to ruffle any feathers here, because maybe our 20 companies won't have those one or two successful ones if we break this. So it's not to say it's right, it's not to say it's wrong, but I understand that level of hesitation. Because when you have raised money from people and you ask them, I need $20 million, put it in, we're going to build this fund, we're going to do this. These VCs have pressure on them too, right? People gave them that money. And if they're like all of a sudden, well, we're just going to turn upside down on the whole sales product, the whole go-to-market strategy that we generally push to our founders, that is very scary. And what you will see, and it's always been this way, you will see there will be early adopters. There will be the ones who are willing to take the risk, or the ones who just believed in it enough. There will be the big success stories of that. And you will gradually see that sort of VC suggested model, so to speak, right? Sort of that playbook, that industry standard playbook will gradually change. And so that's why I say we're going from the dollars to the value, right? And that's the transition we're going through now, which is that if you want the dollars, you have to deliver the value first. And I think that's the transition that we're seeing play out. I hope I didn't offend any VCs or anything in there. I really,
who cares?
I mean, it's not even the intent, though.
No, but, I like the reality that Collin.
I could insult them all day long if we want to, but that particular piece, I don't even think they're wrong there. They're doing what they are supposed to be doing for their fund.
Right.
They don't want 20 companies to go completely change the way the entire industry sells. That's scary. That is called risk. And when you bring people's money into an investment portfolio, you have to explain to them your risk assessment, your risk portfolio. And so you can't just change that. And so people don't necessarily understand this. They feel, well, I'm working at a startup. I don't know. It makes sense. We should change it. You're working a part of a much bigger system. And when you understand that, you have to understand this context, because when you try to suggest a change, even as a sales leader or even a CEO, you have to understand everyone's perspective, everyone's needs, right? And that's why a lot of these things, unfortunately, will move gradually. Someone like, you'll see someone like Slack who gets to 20 million users without salespeople. And like, that was a milestone for the industry. And there will be then some people who like mimic a little bit of that, a little bit. Eventually, you'll get to that point. So long-winded answer to that question, but why are we still doing it? Because it's just going to take a long time. It's going to take a long time. It's going to be a process of people stopping answering their phones completely. to, also the venture side of things, realizing that there is a better way that we can have perhaps the same risk assessment, et cetera.
It was
Hope that
definitely
made
very
sense.
deep. No, it did make sense. And the only thing I would say that I never thought that deep, where I can definitely see why you have that perspective, because when I typically think about that question and answer, it's everybody's still thinking about meeting their own numbers, trying to, the dollar also meant to me, maybe it's the salary or the comp or the revenue, just there's this whole mindset, oh, revenue is the only thing, grow, in whatever the cost. And in this market, as you rightly said, everybody's observing now, that's the not healthy way of growing it.
Yeah.
But the thing that you even took that to the next level, you say, okay, but why this is even happening? Because there was so much surplus of money available. Investors, VCs were funding this company at crazy valuations. Everybody was putting this money to grow. Their now expectations were higher. So everybody's trying to just follow the practice. The quick, rich schemes where, get to these things and book quick meetings. And so people are not taking the time. And so this is definitely was very deep. I did not go back to where this was originated from. So I like that perspective. And I don't worry about if somebody gets offended. The job is to offend somebody. The whole point of modern world is to offend somebody who is traditional, who is doing things wrong, and to tell the world that there is new way that's happening. If you don't pay the attention, you will be irrelevant. You will be gone. Somebody else is going to take that space. So I like this perspective. I don't know some of the leaders, how they're thinking, how immediately they'll be able to make it actionable.
Now. The nice thing in relation to that conversation is everything, if there is a plus side to being in a recession and whatever else is going on right now with our money, this is forcing change, right? This is
100%.
We've felt it. The VCs are talking differently. It's not about inflated
Same
valuations.
VCs.
The same VCs.
It's so
their
funny.
environment has changed.
Yeah,
and that's why I say I can insult them all day, but on this particular topic, I'm not. They're literally just doing what they're supposed to do.
Correct.
But now the environment around them is changing, and that's an opportunity for us. That means that this is the time, if we were ever to come forward and say, hey, I got an idea to really change things, you're going to get less resistance now, because that idea is probably going to be a cost saving. These are the kinds of brainstorms that they actually want right now. But when everything's just working and the bubble is not popped yet and that money's flowing, VCs are going to say, no. Keep going. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. Follow the playbook. And you can't blame them. Again, that's the point. You really can't in that situation. They're doing what they're supposed to do. They're protecting their investment. They're sticking to their risk portfolio or risk category, whatever you call it, because it's the right thing to do. Otherwise, the people who all gave them $5 million are going to say, I'm taking my money out of your fund. All right. No more money.
Yeah.
You guys keep changing everything. It's out of control. So you got to realize you got all these different forces coming together. That's what creates our reality.
We're getting close, but I want to still touch upon one last question I have on this mind, where we go with this new playbook. We convince now leaders that, hey, start thinking about the modern prospecting is not just only about cold calls and cold emails. Don't do the quick rich kind of schemes. Take your time, build your content, build your thought leadership, engage. And when they're ready, you'll be able to buy, or they'll be booking meeting, and those you'll have the real conversations. There's a lot more there in terms of how to make it tactical. We'll probably cover those in different forums as well. One area, if you start telling the leaders and even the SDRs or AEs who are doing this prospecting, how their compensation is going to change in this new world. Are you suggesting that the way the current practices of people are being compensated, sometimes some SDRs do get paid based on the opportunities created, some only based on the meetings created. Sometimes now even some SDRs organizations they'll pay SDRs based on the revenue closed as well. Everything has pluses, minus. You have been a leader. You've thought about this probably multiple times. No model will be a perfect model. There would be a lot of questions and pros and cons. But what do you think would be a more forward-looking compensation model? Let's say just focus on SDRs would look like.
Okay. So for SDRs, we're transitioning sort of, and again, I'm not getting into my like crazy future stuff. Let's talk now. SDRs getting into this, as I would describe it, it's sort of a salesperson becoming hybrid to a marketer, right? So they're taking on some bit of that content marketing, but they're still being a salesperson. They're engaging, they're actually talking. They're not just pushing out the content and disappearing. So what that means, it's pretty simple, right? It means that part of their job is now really organic. It is not so much focused on just cranking out like sort of a routine thing. And you don't want that, because if you push them down that road, okay, you need 20 LinkedIn posts this week, you're going to get 20 garbage posts, right? Like that's why you don't do
That's
that.
also
Your blog
not,
writer, right? That's why they write one blog a month or something, right? So there's that element to think about, is just, has the role changed? And, you know, we've talked about this before, but does that also mean you're going to hire different people and you know, different personality profiles, whatnot? But in terms of the comp, I think, number one, there's no one size fits all. I can't give you a simple answer that applies to everyone. The product really makes a difference. How transactional it is, right? If you're selling newspapers back in 95, you could pick up the phone call and make 500 calls a day. You're going to sell 50 newspapers, right? The subscriptions to Wall Street Journal or whatever. And you don't need to introduce yourself, nothing. Hey, it's Collin. I'm calling. I got the Wall Street Journal. I got a special deal here for you. I can do it for $25.91. You want that? Wait, did you say 25? Yeah, I'm paying this. Oh yeah, we'll take that. Sign up. Right? Like those sales were just boom, 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 boom. No one does that now because you buy that stuff on the internet. But the more transactional, sort of the more rigid you might be able to get with that stuff. But if you really, and this is where it's sort of that risk assessment, similar to investors, it depends how much you want to really believe in this. Do you want to go all in and say, you know what, we're just going to pay our SDRs a salary the same way we do with our marketers. We're going to give them a bonus if we hit our revenue target every quarter, and that's it. And if they suck, we're going to just fire them, right? Because you can always do that anyway. So when we get into the comp and stuff, salespeople, they need the upside, AEs particularly, you know, but if you're going to be an SDR for a year or two, I think you can live off a healthy salary. I think you don't necessarily need that commission. Let's face it, it's not that much anyway. As an SDR, we probably spend too much time trying to calculate it and figure it all out. And then they spend so much, how many hours are wasted, burned away just thinking about it? We're doing it right now, right? Like imagine if it just didn't exist. We wouldn't even have to waste the time thinking about it. And so maybe you just pay an SDR 60, 70, whatever the going rate is. And you evaluate them the way you would a more or a less, I don't know what you refer to it as, but in product or whatnot, right? There's less metrics, your quality assessing sort of, right?
I like that.
There's a word for that, but I, you know, you base their reviews on something just more, it's more your feedback. You need a structure for that. But so that's one option, is to just wipe off the commission and just look at it more as a marketing role. It works in marketing. So could it work there?
And sometimes that's for the whole debate, like SDRs.
Sure.
Generating pipeline, generating leads, similar to marketing. I like that the way you're thinking that SDRs are semi-marketers. If they do this job of building content and building social presence, essentially,
if they're
there's
really
an organic
doing that, if they're really
they have
doing
to do that.
But if you're hiring someone who's spending, I don't know, 60% of their time just firing off sales loft, then you should not make that compensation change, right?
Correct.
This is really a new role. If you still call it SDR,
Understood.
great, you know, but
Understood.
I think it is a different role.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Which
this is
our
phenomenal.
Conversation the other day, you might hire different people for it too, right?
That is true. Now
you might move a marketer into it.
And that is true. Exactly. So because some people are great and you have this social influence and thought leadership background, those people are definitely in demand when you think about it. You are looking at it like when we actually created our own hiring criteria, one of the rubric metric is social selling skills. And one of the things that it's not about can you do it? I can already see it. Have you been doing it? So just resume is not sufficient. Like I want to see, do you have that skills? Because this is becoming part of your skill on a day-to-day basis. Then I want to see, are you already doing it or not? If you're not, then definitely you're going to get lesser points there. You might still hire you if you have some stronger points in some other area, but that is definitely one of the primary criteria nowadays.
You could consider also, I'll just throw it in there. If you don't want to do, like I recommend rev share when it comes to marketing bonuses and stuff, or not rev share, sorry, rev bonus, meaning the company hits their target, everyone gets bonus.
I like that.
But it could also be based on the individual's contributions. And so you could have a hybrid of both. You could say to the SDR, okay, you're coming in, this is a 1-year program or 2-year program, right? We're going to put you through all this training. You're going to get a base salary straight out of the gate, 50K, 60K, whatever it is. There's an annual bonus. You only get it if you're here at that time. And that annual bonus will be based off of your contributions to revenue, right? So now you've got a year to see what they actually contribute. And at the end of that year, assuming they made it, right? You've still been happy with all the production and then the momentum. Well, then you can maybe assess their revenue or their pipeline that they've created and have a bonus structure that gets paid out less regularly. Because do they really need that like $500 or $1,000 monthly commission if you just give them a real salary? Like they don't, and you save all the time trying to think about it anyway. And then you only give the bonuses to those who made it to the end of the year, which is pretty good incentive to stick around and tough it out. And then you're not calculating, small little paychecks that are like, what are they, 10% of their income anyway? Like for half these roles, it's crazy that how small that piece has gotten in some companies. It's not even worth the time at a certain point.
I love this perspective. This is something we need to probably think about it. But I love the way you change the dynamics that, hey, the time you're spending in calculating those is also actually costing you money. So don't overthink it. You see that, oh, I'm paying for the performance, but you're probably not, because it's either consistent and you have right alignment. If they're going to do the work, they're going to stay here longer anyways. Bingo. Otherwise, you will be also let them go as well if they don't.
And they're going to love getting a bonus right before Christmas. Everyone needs it then. You know what they do with those $1,000 commission checks? They spend them right away.
Yeah.
They spend them. Give a young SDR an annual bonus, educate them a little bit on how to do some investing or what to do the right thing. They're probably going to end up in a better financial place in 5 years anyway than getting these little chip checks along the road. An SDR commission check, or it's not much, right? In transactional sales, especially, usually the base has got to be so high. At least in New York, we had laws. It had to be. So we had to keep cutting the commission down to make it work. And it's like at a certain point, like, what are we doing here? How much time are we spending talking about it? And then we got to buy tools to calculate all. Just give a bonus at the end of the year. Come on, right? And then you're literally only giving it to the people who are good. Yeah.
No, this is awesome. Thanks a ton, Collin. A lot of great, fresh perspectives. Definitely, I'm sure we will have a lot of different reactions after this. People will listen to this conversation, but that's the most important part. Like, I wanted to hear modern views, different views. Industry is seeing the shift, and thank you for bringing across the board compensation, why even this problem is even happening in the first place. How do we get out of this thing and be relevant to the next way of doing it? And then how do you build the personal brand? Don't think it's a transactional one. It's your own lifelong journey as well that you can carry on even if you change the jobs. Thank you once again. And for people who are listeners, I hope this was very helpful. The way I enjoyed this conversation, definitely there were a few eye openers. Collin, I'm going to call you back again because there's still so much we could talk, and especially the topic that you earlier on mentioned about the bias. We should definitely go deep once you have that ready.
Aditya, for everyone walking away, this is a time right now where it's special for us in sales. The economy's messed up, everything's going on, but that means it's opportunity for us because everything's getting stirred up and shaken up. So it is an opportunity to change whatever you want. You're going to get less pushback. This is when everyone wants you coming to the table with ideas. And if those ideas entail spending less money, they're going to be like, let's try it. Right. And you wouldn't have gotten that response 2 years ago. They'd be like, no, we got to burn that cash. Got to burn it. It keeps coming in. Literally, investors would be like, you're not burning cash fast enough. They would ask that. Different world now, right? So it's an opportunity for us. So question everything. Don't be afraid of changing things, and just always put the buyer experience first. If you do that, you're going to probably head in the right direction.
Those are beautiful words. Why don't we end there? Thank you, everyone. We would see you again next week with another episode of Modern SaaS Podcast. Like us, subscribe to our YouTube video, and also the podcast episode where you listen. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.